Today we're going to be talking about demographic stability. Demographics are one of the hardest things to fix in a country and are one of the best things to have stable in your country if you want it to function. Stability is the amount it changes or does not change in a state that will lead to good or bad results. Stable demography we're going to define as something that's going to lead to good results or keeps the results good. And an unstable demography is going to be something that leads to bad events, instability in the state, and the decline or destruction of the state in one way or in another. Um, a few issues we want to discuss, we're going to discuss about the issue, and these are issues that kind of cause problems in the state where they appear. The first major issue to discuss is in-group out-group preferences. In-groups are a group of people that see themselves as a group. We're not going to argue with why they see it. It might be logical and might be illogical, but the most important thing is that the in-group sees itself as a group. Many features can unite a group. However, we need to look at which features actually unite them. This means that one group can have multiple features that are supposed to unite them, but some of them triumph over the others. One good example is Azerbaijan. They see themselves as an Azeri nation, a kind of Turkish ethnicity, but also as a certain Turkish tribe called Azeris. They are also Shia of the Islamic religion. However, their Turkish ethnicity, their Azeri nationality, triumphs over this Shia belief because they're not all that religious. They are religious, but not in a defining way. They are not in group towards Shias, but rather in group towards Azeris. A great example of misunderstanding the situation was the Iran-Iraq War. The Iraqis thought that Arabs in Iran would side with them as fellow ethnic Arabs. They were wrong. Iran also thought that the Shia Iraqis would sympathize with them because their dictator Saddam was Sunni and the power group was Sunni. And they thought that as the oppressed Shias they would side with the Shia state. They were also wrong. The in-group can create itself for any reason. They can choose any factor they want to make themselves an in-group. However, historically there have been four main reasons for the in-groups to become in-groups: nationalism or nationality, religion, culture, and race. In many different places, sharing a country causes the locals to feel one or united. It helps that they have a shared military history. That is to be that being on the same side of a battlefield helps them feel united. We're not talking about being on the same battlefield but fighting one another. Also, a shared language helps. The fact that the state has one language or one main language helps unify them. Also, a shared political system helps them feel like they're all playing the same game and they're all in this together. All of these often come as a result of being in one country, one kingdom, under one government, under one king. However you look at it, they are one country. Sharing a religion can make you have shared values. People who share the same religion will share the same basic philosophical principles. The more religious the people are, the more they will feel kinship to fellow followers of the same faith. This is less true as the nation is more secular. That is to say, if you are a Jew in name only, a Muslim in name only, a Christian in name only, if you do not share the same basic principles, but you just call yourself one of the people, you're going to feel less kinship towards people because you don't share the same basic values. This in-group can, however, be divided among sects. This means that while Sunnis and Shias are Muslims, they may not like each other. While Catholics and Protestants are Christians, they may not like each other. I don't know what sects there are in Buddhism, but that doesn't mean that every Buddhist is on the same side. Culture is something that is a bit hard to control by the states. However, when people can do business together, when they can eat together, when they can refrain from offending each other, they can create friendships. They can just hang out and kind of become friends with random people that are not supposed to be in their in group. People who can speak the same language and have shared cultural reference can bond in a way that outsiders can't. You just don't get what they're saying, even if you understand the words. If you don't share a culture, you're thinking about the same subject in a different way. A shared culture can share values, and smaller in groups can merge together to create a larger in group. We kind of see a cultural merging of in groups through culture. Race is one of the weirder reasons for in group preferences, and today it seems normal to people. However, it should be mentioned that historically, people usually fought their neighbors, their neighboring states, people of the same genes or the same race. Most historic rivalries in history were between people that were not all that different genetically. And once one side conquered the other, the genes mixed even more. Race as a unifying concept is a bit of a weird thing that emerged over the last few centuries for a few weird reasons. One is the oppression of blacks in the Americas under slavery. It created a slave denomination, an underclass that felt united because the upper classes rejected them. Uh, Also, the whites in America kind of united because of good integration. That is to say, that people melded in together, and while they came from different parts of Europe, they kind of adopted one identity, the American identity, a kind of shared American identity that is also kind of a shared white American identity. Then why is race a problematic in group to define? Um, there's a question, what is exactly white? In the past, the people from Ireland, were not considered white by Americans. Today, there are arguments on the internet about different groups and are they white? Are Slavs white? Are Jews white? Are Southern Europeans white? Are North Africans white? Are Hispanics white? And if you can't really define what is the in group, is it really an in group? It's going to always create problems with why are you excluding these people or why are you including these people. One common mistake that should be mentioned, that a lot of people don't understand why race nationalism is a bit of an odd thing, is they think of Hitler as a white nationalist. Hitler was kind of an Aryan nationalist. It was only the right types of white people, and he killed a lot of the wrong types of white people. That is to say, in World War II, they killed a lot of gypsies, a lot of Jews, and a lot of Slavs, because while they were very pale and very similar, they were not the right type of white people. They were of the enemy nations, they were of the rival nations, something that was very common in history, and a kind of blanket white unity didn't really exist for most of history. Today, like in the past, governments are trying to tear down these lines or these unification lines because they want groups of people to unite. They want in groups to unite to create bigger nations. They want different states to unite because if you can have a super state, why not have a super state? This may not seem that good to you, but think for a moment of the United Kingdom and of America. The United Kingdom was originally four different countries, or even more. England, Scotland, Wales, and Ireland, or Northern Ireland. It took many centuries and multiple generations to get to the point where they are today. After 1,000 years of fighting each other, England and Scotland now are more or less one country. Wales as well. Northern Ireland is kind of a bit other story, however, the idea that these nations don't need to have armies at the border, can trade freely with each other, can move across the borders and can intermarry. This is to say that no Englishman is going to tell his daughter off for marrying a Scotsman. No one who's Welsh is not going to be accepted by Northern Ireland. These countries that used to be enemies of each other can now unite and can now live as if they are one. America is another great example because we think of it as one country, but it originally was not. It was not even close to one country. They call themselves 13 colonies because they were 13 religious fundamentalist Christian colonies and have very different worldviews. However, for military reasons, they united to face the British and the Indians. Um, Today, it almost seems silly to think of them as different countries because they're so similar, and that happens over time. And what I want you to imagine is the United States of Europe. Think of all the rivalries put behind you and free movement between the different states, maybe a united Congress and similar political system to America, where each state has internal powers, but also there's a federal government over all of them together. This may seem strange to you, but it would have a lot of benefits for Europe. There's no reason not to try to create a great super state that protects all of its people. Tearing these lines, however, can cause one major problem. The same things that cause us to solidarity and can cause us to divide ourselves are going to be disrupted. That is to say, anything that unites us is a reason to divide us. For the same reasons I like this neighbor, I don't like that neighbor. And changing the moral, cultural, languages, anything that has united these states together may kind of break down society. As you try to form a new in-group, the old group in-groups may collapse. Also, in much of the world, uniting tribes is much harder today, for a very simple reason. External empires want to divide and conquer. A country that has two different tribes that can be played off each other is going to be much more unstable, and the government is going to be much more dependent on a foreign empire. This is not a bug, this is a feature. External empires want demographically unstable vassal states. One of the major issues we're going to be facing in the coming decades, and possibly the entire next century, is demographic decline. Demographic decline is when the population shrinks over time. Any place that the average household has less than 2 children, the next generation is going to be smaller than this generation. And life expectancy is rising, so there are going to be more and more people above the pension age. In Europe, we see most countries have below 2 replacement rates. In South America, we have similar numbers, a bit higher. In the Far East, we have similar numbers. In the Arab states, in the Middle East, we have higher numbers, but these numbers are declining. States that used to have 8 or 9 children per family are now having less than 4, and they're shrinking. Africa is still on the rise, but it's unclear how much longer it's going to continue before they stop increasing as well. The main reason demographic decline is going to be a problem is that there's going to be too many pensioners per worker. This is going to cause taxes to rise because people who are working are going to have to pay for pensions for people who are not working. Just think of it as a lot of people not in the system feeding off the system. People who are not paying in anymore are still expecting to draw resources from the state. This is going to cause strife between people who are pensioners and the people who are going to have to pay for these pensions. A lot of the younger generations don't like the current plan. Think about it this way: 30 years ago, people who were politicians then and are now deceased promised people who were 30, 40, and 50 that in 30 years they would get a bunch of money when they retired, or they were promised money in one way or another. And 30 years ago, the people under 30 were not even alive. The people under 40 were under 10 and did not understand economics. The people under 50 were kind of teenagers, and most of them did not understand economics. They said, hey, why not give grandpa more retirement money? These plans were made without their consent or without their understanding, and now they're going to be paying for pensions that are going to burden their lives heavily. Also, there's a lot of struggle that's going to be between the people who own everything and those who pay too much taxes. Think about it this way: the person who invested and has investment properties today is going to be renting them out to people who are paying too many taxes anyway and can't get up into the home ownership ladder. This means that not only are you paying in taxes, you're paying in rent, because you can't buy houses because all the houses were bought up by past generations. What we see here is a kind of situation where the older people and the younger people are on two different sides of the economic warfare. Look up the video on political theft for a better explanation about this. It's on my channel. The West is trying to solve the lack of children problem, the demographic decline problem, by importing immigrants. These immigrants are supposed to replace the children they did not have 20 years ago. Even if they have now regular families, it's going to take 20 years or 30 years for these new children to reach working age, depending on the job. Some jobs you can do at 18 with barely a high school diploma. Some jobs you need a doctorate, and these jobs may be important. These immigrants are supposed to work to pay for the pensions of the old people, but the immigrants don't really want to pay for it. They want the system to subsidize their lifestyles. In both cases, this is a situation where the pensioners want other people to pay for their pensions, and the immigrants want the state to pay for their lifestyle. It's just more political theft. Look at that episode, at that video that I made. Everyone's trying to get someone else to pay the bills through the state. Another major issue that the immigrants may cause is in-group, out-group instability. That is to say that some immigrants are being integrated better than others, and as the demographics change, the in-groups may break the country down. That is to say that if these countries used to be 90, 95%, 100% one in-group, and now you're going to have 50% one in-group, and then 50% divided into a bunch of different in-groups, you're going to have some in-group, out-group behaviors that will destabilize the country. Or this may happen. We're not sure. It depends on how the in-groups and out-groups see themselves. If you integrate them properly, they're just going to be different colored in-group people. They're going to be fellow citizens of a different ethnicity or race that have a different history, but have a shared culture system, shared nationality, that are going to be new citizens. However, if they're not integrated well, there's going to be demographic instability. Demographic explosions are also a something that is theoretically possible. Um, in theory, you can have too many children, and then the adults can't fund the children. Um, this isn't so much an explosion like people would think. The explosion is usually not an explosion, the explosion is usually growth. When you can afford 10 children, then you have 10 children, and then you have 100 grandchildren. When you can't afford, when the country doesn't have these resources, you may give birth to 10 children, but malnutrition and diseases kill them. This is an unfortunate reality of history. And this is to say that most of human history, you may have had 20 births and like 2 people reaching adulthood, or 4 people reaching adulthood. The rich people, their children used to survive better and were more likely to reach adulthood, but um, a demographic explosion is usually not so much an explosion as much as it is an expansion. That is to say, when a state can expand its population, it does. And this takes several generations, quite literally generations, because we're talking about the expansion of a demographic, of population. The economy expands to feed them, and they eventually reach some kind of limit where, again, you can't afford too many children, so the children don't survive. Um, the explosion idea is kind of like an idea that you reach too much, and because you kind of reach like some kind of maximum, it's going to destroy the state and shrink back. This isn't something we've seen too much in history. We've seen mostly countries expand when they can and reach a kind of natural limit because you can only produce so much resources for each person. Um, this doesn't seem to exist, however, when this kind of limit is reached, this often creates wars. And I think it creates wars. It's a bit hard to document and to prove that these things cause wars. However, think about it this way: you're living at your maximal capacity. You need more resources, and you and your neighbor state, the whatever outgroup is, are going to fight over the resources you have. A little bit more oil, a little bit more farmland, a little bit more water is going to help more of your children survive. In this kind of case, economies are directly tied to life expectancy. And when you're having economic problems as it is, trying to fight the enemy to obtain some kind of resource is going to be an evil but logical thing to do because you want more resources for your in group and at the expense of an out group. Um, there is this thing called Strauss generational theory. They say that every 80 years, more or less, there's a major conflict every 4 generations. This may or may not be true. They have kind of a psychological analysis of this. However, it is entirely possible that at the end of the war, you've kind of run out your economy. You're going to try to regrow your population, whether you're victorious or you're defeated, and your population is going to expand for a while until it reaches the new limit. The new limit could be higher or lower than before. However, it's going to take multiple generations to reach it again. And once you reach it again, there's going to be another struggle for resources in one way or another. And it's a bit hard to kind of give you a good, straightforward formula for this. People try to play with the numbers all the time. However, the idea is that once you reach this limit, you try to break through uh, by war. What type of demographic instability is most concerning in your country? Please tell us so we can learn about your country and what it may face. If you like this video, please comment, upvote, and subscribe. If you want to help further, go and watch my other videos. And if you like them as well, do the same over there. Also, please share this video and any other video you might think people might take interest in. If you want to support me further, you can buy my book on Amazon, Ancapistan by Noah Goodman. Thank you for watching, and good night.